The fluorescent lights of the diner buzzed overhead like dying insects, casting a sickly yellow glow over the cracked vinyl booths and coffee-stained countertops. I wiped down table 7 for the third time tonight, my lower back screaming in protest, the smell of burnt coffee and grease so deeply embedded in my uniform that no amount of washing would ever get it out. My fingers were raw from scalding water and cheap detergent, my feet throbbing in shoes held together with duct tape and prayer. 3 double shifts this week, 3. And still not enough to cover rent and Emma's daycare. I tucked a strand of limp hair behind my ear, catching my reflection in the window. Dark circles under my eyes, skin pale as milk, 24 years old but looking closer to 40. When had I become invisible? When had I stopped being a person and become just another piece of furniture in this greasy nightmare? Table 3 needs refills, barked Marcus from behind the counter, not even looking up from his phone. I nodded at no one, grabbing the coffee pot with hands that trembled from exhaustion. The diner was nearly empty, just old Mr. Peterson nursing his decaf in the corner and a couple of truckers by the window. The bell above the door chimed, but I didn't look up. Another customer. Another $1 tip if I was lucky. Another person who would look right through me. I pulled my phone from my apron pocket, checking the time. 11:47 p.m. Emma would be asleep at my mom's by now, her little face peaceful, unaware that her mother was falling apart trying to keep us afloat. My thumb hovered over my messages, and I saw it. The text thread with Jenna, my only friend who still bothered to check in. "Girl, I need a distraction," I typed quickly. "Been thinking about that guy from last weekend. The one with the tattoos. Should I send him something spicy?" I bit my lip, feeling reckless. Feeling like maybe, just maybe, I deserved to feel wanted for once, to feel like something other than a walking ghost. My fingers moved faster than my brain. "I've been thinking about you all night. Can't stop imagining your hands on me. The way you'd taste. I want you so badly it hurts. Come over? I'll make it worth your while." My heart pounded as I hit send, a flush creeping up my neck. God, when was the last time I'd felt anything remotely like desire? When was the last time someone had touched me like I mattered? I shoved the phone back in my apron, a small smile playing on my lips despite everything. Maybe tonight wouldn't be completely... My phone vibrated. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Frowning, I pulled it out again, expecting Jenna's excited response or maybe Tyler's enthusiastic reply. Instead, my blood turned to ice. The message hadn't gone to Tyler. It had gone to a number I'd saved yesterday, a number I'd written down in a moment of pure chaos when a customer had left his business card with a $100 tip and instructions to call if I ever needed anything. Dante Carrera. The contact read, and below it, 3 messages that made my stomach drop through the floor. Interesting. Very interesting. Don't move. My hands shook so violently the phone nearly slipped from my grasp. No, this couldn't be happening. Dante Carrera, the man who'd walked into the diner yesterday with 2 men in black suits flanking him like shadows. The man who'd sat in booth 12, his presence sucking all the oxygen from the room. The man whose eyes had followed me with an intensity that made my skin prickle, dark and endless, and completely unreadable. The man who'd left that card with a tip that was more money than I made in a week. The man who, according to whispered rumors from Marcus, owned half the city's underground. A mafia boss. I'd sent a mafia boss a sexually explicit text message meant for a guy I'd met at a bar. My vision swam. The coffee pot slipped from my nerveless fingers, shattering against the linoleum in an explosion of glass and dark liquid. The sound echoed through the empty diner like a gunshot. "Jesus Christ, Arya!" Marcus shouted, but his voice sounded distant, muffled by the roaring in my ears. I stared at my phone, watching the 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. He was typing. Oh God, he was typing. Address? My throat closed. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. What did I do? What the hell did I do? Another message. I can find it myself, but I'd prefer you give it to me. Then, I'm a patient man, Arya, but not tonight. He knew my name. Of course he knew my name. I'd worn a name tag yesterday, and men like that noticed everything. Men like that forgot nothing. My fingers moved on autopilot, some self-preservation instinct buried deep overriding my frozen brain. I typed out my address, watching the letters appear through a haze of panic and disbelief. What choice did I have? He'd said he could find it himself, and I believed him. Men like Dante Carrera had resources, connections, ways of discovering things that should remain hidden. The moment I hit send, reality crashed over me like a wave of ice water. What had I done? I grabbed my purse from under the counter, Marcus's protests fading to white noise as I stumbled toward the exit. The night air hit me like a slap, cold and sharp, cutting through the fog of terror. My apartment was 15 minutes away on foot. I couldn't afford a car, could barely afford the bus, but I ran anyway, my worn shoes slapping against cracked pavement. The streets were empty, pools of lamplight creating islands in an ocean of darkness. My breath came in ragged gasps, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought they might crack. What would he do? What did men like him do to people who disrespected them, even accidentally? Images flashed through my mind. Things I'd seen in movies, stories I'd heard whispered in dark corners. I thought of Emma, sleeping peacefully, unaware that her mother might not come home tomorrow. Might not come home ever. Tears blurred my vision as I rounded the corner to my building, a decrepit structure with peeling paint and a front door that didn't lock properly. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my key scraping against the lock of apartment 3B before finally, mercifully, turning. I slammed the door behind me, throwing the deadbolt and the chain, useless probably, but it made me feel marginally safer. My apartment was barely more than a studio, a sagging couch, a kitchenette with appliances from the 70s, a mattress on the floor in the corner where I slept. The walls were thin enough that I could hear Mrs. Chen's television next door, thin enough that everyone would hear if I screamed. I paced the tiny space, phone clutched in my sweating palm, watching the minutes tick by. Maybe he wouldn't come. Maybe it was a joke, some sick game he played with foolish girls who didn't know better than to. A knock at the door. 3 precise raps. Almost polite. Almost gentle. But there was nothing gentle about the way my blood turned to ice, the way every muscle in my body locked tight with primal fear. Another knock. Firmer this time. Arya. His voice drifted through the thin wood, smooth as aged whiskey and twice as dangerous. Open the door. Not a request. Never a request with men like him. My hand moved to the deadbolt, trembling so badly I could barely grip it. What choice did I have? He knew where I lived. He knew where I worked. If I didn't open the door now, he'd come back. Or worse, he'd send someone else. The chain rattled as I slid it free. The deadbolt clicked. The door swung open. Dante Carrera stood in my doorway, and suddenly my hallway seemed too small, too confined to contain him. He was taller than I remembered, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that looked like it could cut glass, and those eyes. God, those eyes. Dark as sin and twice as tempting, fixed on me with an intensity that made my knees weak. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent, the fabric molding to his frame in a way that suggested both power and violence held carefully in check. No tie, the top button of his white shirt undone, revealing a glimpse of tanned throat. A gold watch caught the hallway light, glinting with each minimal movement. Behind him, I could see 2 figures in the stairwell, dark shapes that radiated menace even in stillness. "May I come in?" He asked it like a question, but we both knew it wasn't. I stepped back, my survival instincts screaming at me to run, to fight, to do anything but let this predator into my home. But survival instincts were useless against inevitability. He moved past me, and I caught his scent. Expensive cologne undercut with something darker, something that spoke of leather and smoke and dangerous places. He filled my tiny apartment the way an ocean fills a teacup, making everything else seem smaller, cheaper, more pathetic by comparison. His gaze swept the space in one comprehensive glance, taking in the thrift store furniture, the cracks in the ceiling, the stack of bills on the counter that I hadn't been able to pay. I saw myself through his eyes, a girl living in squalor, desperate and invisible and completely, utterly beneath his notice. Except I wasn't beneath his notice, was I? I'd made sure of that with my catastrophic mistake. So, he turned to face me, and I instinctively backed up until my spine hit the door I'd just closed. That was quite a message. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. What could I possibly say? Sorry, wrong number seemed criminally inadequate when facing a man who could probably make me disappear with a single phone call. My voice cracked. I swallowed hard, tasting copper and fear. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to send it to you. I'm so sorry, Mr. Carrera. Dante. He stepped closer, and I pressed harder against the door, as if I could somehow melt through it and escape. You sent me a very explicit message, Aria. The least you can do is use my first name. The way he said my name, slow, deliberate, like he was tasting it, sent shivers down my spine that had nothing to do with cold, and everything to do with the predatory gleam in those dark eyes. It was meant for someone else, I whispered, my hands finding the doorknob behind me, gripping it like a lifeline. A guy I met last weekend. I grabbed the wrong contact. I swear, I would never... Never what? He cocked his head slightly, studying me the way a scientist might study an insect pinned to a board. Never proposition a man like me? Never think about my hands on your body? He quoted my own words back to me, and I wanted to die right there. Never imagine how I'd taste. Heat flooded my face, mortification mixing with terror in a cocktail that made me dizzy. Please, I have a daughter. She's 3. I can't. Whatever you're going to do to me, please. She needs her mother. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or something darker I couldn't name. He stopped advancing, standing in the center of my pathetic living room, hands sliding into his pockets with casual grace. You think I came here to hurt you, didn't you? My voice came out sharper than intended, fear manifesting as anger because it was easier to be angry than to be terrified. Men like you don't show up at girls' apartments at midnight because you want to chat about the weather. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Men like me. Dangerous men. Powerful men. I lifted my chin, even as my body trembled. If I was going to die, I'd at least die with some shred of dignity. Men who aren't used to being disrespected, even accidentally. Is that what you think happened? Disrespect? He moved again, but this time toward the window, pulling back the thin curtain to glance down at the street below. I could see his profile in the dim light. Aristocratic, beautiful in a way that seemed almost cruel. Tell me about this man, the one you meant to send that message to. The question caught me off guard. What? Tyler, wasn't it? He let the curtain fall, turning back to me. I assume that's who you meant to proposition at... He glanced at his watch. Nearly midnight on a Thursday. I stared at him. How did he know Tyler's name? Had he already looked into my phone, my life? I don't see how that's relevant, I managed. Humor me. It wasn't a request. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly aware of how I must look. Cheap uniform stained with coffee, hair falling out of its messy bun, exhaustion etched into every line of my face. Next to him, I was nothing. Less than nothing. I met him at a bar last weekend. My friend Jenna dragged me out. We talked, exchanged numbers. That's it. I paused. That's all it was supposed to be, and yet you wanted him badly enough to send that message. Dante's eyes never left my face, reading every micro-expression, every tell. Badly enough that it hurt. Shame burned through me. Can we please not? When's the last time someone touched you, Arya? The question hit me like a physical blow. I flinched, tears pricking the corners of my eyes. That's none of your... When's the last time someone made you feel wanted? Desired? He took a step forward, and I had nowhere left to retreat. When's the last time you felt like something other than invisible? How did he know? How could he possibly know the exact words that had been running through my head for months, maybe years? Stop. My voice broke. Please, just whatever you want, whatever I need to do to make this right, just tell me. But stop looking at me like that. Like what? Like you can see inside me. A tear escaped, trailing hot down my cheek, like you know things you shouldn't know. He was closer now, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the flecks of gold in those dark eyes, close enough to kill me if he wanted to. "I do see inside you," he said softly, and there was something almost gentle in his tone that scared me more than threats would have. "I see a woman who works herself to exhaustion for a daughter she loves more than life. I see someone who's forgotten what it feels like to be touched with anything resembling tenderness. I see someone who's so starved for connection that she'll reach out to strangers in bars, hoping they'll make her feel alive again." Another tear fell, then another. I couldn't stop them now. "I see you, Arya. Every part of you." His hand lifted, and I tensed, but he only brushed a tear from my cheek with his thumb. A touch so gentle it broke something inside me. "That message you sent? That wasn't a mistake. Not really." "Yes, it was. It was a message from your subconscious, telling you what you really wanted." His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I shuddered. "Not some forgettable boy from a bar. Someone who could see you. Someone who could make you feel, you're insane," I whispered. But I didn't pull away from his touch. Couldn't. "Maybe." His smile was dark, dangerous. "Or maybe I'm the only person who's been honest with you in years." My phone buzzed in my apron pocket, making us both freeze. With shaking hands, I pulled it out. A text from my mother. "Emma's fine. Sleeping like an angel. Don't worry about picking her up early tomorrow. You need rest, baby girl." The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, standing in my apartment with a Mafia boss's hand on my face, and my mother was telling me to rest. "Your daughter's name is Emma, not a question." He'd already known. "Don't." I finally found the strength to step back, breaking contact. "Don't you dare bring my daughter into whatever this is." "This?" He lowered his hand but didn't retreat. "What do you think this is?" "I don't know." I wrapped my arms tighter around myself, a pathetic shield against his intensity. "A game? Some twisted way to punish me for the text?" "No game." His expression hardened slightly. "And no punishment. At least not the kind you're imagining." "Then what do you want from me?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I wasn't ready to examine. Dante studied me for a long moment, and I could practically see the calculations running behind those intelligent eyes. "Yesterday, when I came into that diner, do you know what I saw?" I shook my head mutely. "A woman who moved through the room like a ghost, serving coffee, cleaning tables, existing in a space that should have been beneath my notice." He paused. "But you weren't beneath my notice. Because when you brought me my coffee, your hand shook, just slightly. And when you set it down, you looked at me, really looked at me, for exactly 3 seconds before you remembered you were supposed to be invisible." My heart hammered. I'd thought I'd been so careful yesterday, so controlled. In those 3 seconds, I saw something I haven't seen in a very long time. Recognition. Not of who I am or what I do. You didn't know any of that then. But recognition of danger, of power. He took another step closer, and this time, I didn't back away. "You knew I was a predator, and something in you responded to that. That's not— Don't lie to yourself, Arya. Not anymore." His voice dropped lower, intimate. "You sent me that text because some part of you wanted this. Wanted me to come here. Wanted to see what would happen if you stopped being invisible for just one night." "No." But even I could hear how unconvincing it sounded. "Yes." He was so close now I could feel his breath on my face. "And now I'm here. So what are you going to do about it?" My back hit the door again, and I realized I'd been retreating without noticing. He caged me in, one hand braced against the wood beside my head, his body a wall of heat and barely contained violence. "I could ruin you," he murmured, and it should have sounded like a threat, but somehow it sounded like a promise. "One phone call, and you'd never work in this city again. Another call, and your apartment building would change ownership. New owner might not be so forgiving about late rent." Terror spiked through me, cold and sharp. "But I'm not going to do that." His free hand came up, fingers threading through my hair, tugging gently until I was forced to look up at him. "Do you know why?" I couldn't speak. could barely breathe. Because you're mine now. The words were soft, almost tender, but there was steel underneath, possession. The moment you sent that text, accidentally or not, you became mine. And I take care of what's mine. I'm not... I started to protest, but his thumb pressed against my lower lip, silencing me. Yes, you are. You just don't know it yet. He leaned in, his lips nearly brushing my ear, but you will. Then he was gone, stepping back, the sudden absence of his presence like a vacuum that left me gasping. He straightened his suit jacket, composed once more, the predator sliding back behind the civilized mask. Go to sleep, Arya. You have work tomorrow. He moved toward the door, and I scrambled out of his way on instinct. Oh, and one more thing. He paused in the doorway, turning back to look at me with those fathomless dark eyes. Delete Tyler's number. You won't be needing it anymore. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him with a finality that echoed through my bones. I stood there, trembling, my mind trying desperately to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed again, a new message from an unknown number that I somehow knew was him. Sweet dreams, Piccola. I'll be thinking about all the things you promised in that text. Soon, you'll deliver on every single one. I didn't sleep. How could I, with his words echoing in my head like a dark lullaby? You're mine now. The sheets tangled around my legs as I tossed and turned on my mattress, watching shadows crawl across the ceiling, seeing his face in every dark corner. By the time my alarm shrieked at 6 a.m., I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. My eyes were gritty, my body aching, and my mind kept replaying the way he'd touched my face. So gentle it had hurt worse than violence would have. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't face the diner, couldn't pretend everything was normal when my entire world had tilted sideways in the span of one catastrophic text message. But I also couldn't afford to miss a shift, not with rent due in 5 days and Emma's daycare payment already a week overdue. The uniform smelled like grease and desperation as I pulled it on, my hands still shaking. I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror, pale, hollow-eyed, looking even more like a ghost than usual. Perfect camouflage for someone who wanted to disappear. Maybe if I was invisible enough, he'd forget about me. Maybe last night had been some twisted game, and now that he'd scared me sufficiently, he'd move on to more interesting prey. The thought should have brought relief. Instead, it brought something uncomfortably close to disappointment. I shoved that feeling down deep, grabbed my purse, and headed out into the gray morning light. The bus ride to the diner took 45 minutes. Every minute an eternity of anxious thoughts. Would he come back? Would he send someone? What did your mind even mean to a man like him? The diner looked the same as always, tired, worn, forgotten by time and progress. I pushed through the door, the bell chiming its familiar greeting, and immediately felt Marcus's disapproving glare from behind the counter. You're late. I glanced at the clock. 6:58. My shift started at 7. 2 minutes isn't... Late is late. And you broke a coffee pot last night. That's coming out of your paycheck. Of course it was. I bit back the sharp response on my tongue and headed to the back to stash my purse. No point arguing. Marcus had been looking for reasons to dock my pay since I'd turned down his creepy advances 3 months ago. The morning shift crawled by in a haze of coffee refills and scrambled eggs, my body moving on autopilot while my mind remained trapped in last night. Every time the bell chimed, my heart jumped. Every dark-haired man who walked through the door made my breath catch. But none of them were him. By noon, I'd almost convinced myself it had been a fever dream. Some stress-induced hallucination brought on by exhaustion and desperation. Men like Dante Carrera didn't show up at the apartments of nobodies like me. They didn't touch our faces and call us theirs. They didn't. The bell chimed. I looked up from wiping down table 5 and felt the world stop spinning. He stood in the doorway, sunlight streaming behind him like some dark angel descending from heaven. Or more accurately, ascending from hell. Same expensive suit, different color. Charcoal gray today, with a black shirt underneath that made him look like a beautiful nightmare. His 2 shadows flanked him as before, silent sentinels in matching suits, but it was his eyes that pinned me in place. Those dark, knowing eyes that found me instantly across the crowded diner as if he'd known exactly where I'd be standing. A small smile curved his lips. Predatory. Possessive. Mine, that smile said. My rag dropped from nerveless fingers, hitting the floor with a wet slap that seemed obscenely loud in the sudden silence. Because the diner had gone quiet, every conversation dying, every head turning to look at the man who radiated danger like other people radiated warmth. Even Marcus had gone pale behind the counter, recognition and fear warring on his face. Dante moved through the space like he owned it. And maybe he did. Maybe he owned everything in this city and I'd just been too naive to realize it. He headed straight for booth 12, the same one he'd occupied yesterday. Sliding into the worn vinyl seat with unconscious grace, his guards took up positions near the door and the back exit, watching. Waiting. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't do anything but stand there clutching a dirty rag, while my heart tried to beat its way out of my chest. Area. Marcus's voice cut through my paralysis, sharp with warning. Table 12 needs service, right. Because I was still a waitress, still invisible, despite everything that had happened. I bent to retrieve the fallen rag, using the moment to compose myself, then forced my feet to carry me toward him. Each step felt like walking toward my own execution. He didn't look up from the menu he was perusing, as if he actually cared about the options in a place like this, until I stopped beside the booth. Then those dark eyes lifted, and I felt their weight like a physical touch. Good afternoon, Arya. Hearing him say my name in public, in this place where I was supposed to be nothing and no one, felt obscene somehow, intimate in a way that made my skin flush. What can I get you? My voice came out steady, professional. A small victory. Coffee. Black. He closed the menu, handing it to me, his fingers brushing mine deliberately. And your presence. Sit. I glanced around the diner. Every eye was on us now, including Marcus's increasingly panicked ones. I'm working. I can't sit down. Not loud, not aggressive, but absolutely final. My knees buckled, and I slid into the opposite side of the booth before my brain could catch up with my body. The vinyl was cold through my thin uniform, or maybe that was just fear making me shiver. Better. He leaned back, studying me with that unnerving intensity. You look tired. Didn't sleep well? I wonder why, I muttered, then immediately regretted the sarcasm. You didn't sass men who could make you disappear. But he just smiled, clearly amused. Still thinking about last night? Trying desperately not to. The honesty slipped out before I could stop it. Liar. He said it gently, almost affectionately. You've thought of nothing else, just like I promised you would. Heat crept up my neck. Damn him for being right. Why are you here? I whispered, very aware of the audience around us, the way conversations had resumed, but everyone was still listening, still watching. I told you. Coffee. His smile widened at my frustrated expression. And to see you, make sure you deleted that number like I asked. My phone felt like a lead weight in my apron pocket. I'd stared at Tyler's contact information for 20 minutes this morning, my thumb hovering over the delete button, before my alarm had interrupted. I hadn't deleted it. Some small, stubborn part of me had refused. I see. His expression darkened, reading the answer in my hesitation. We'll discuss that later. For now, tell me about Emma. Every protective instinct I had roared to life. No. No? He raised an eyebrow, and I realized I'd probably just made a terrible mistake. But I didn't care. Emma was off limits. She had to be. She's 3 years old and has nothing to do with whatever this is between us. Leave her out of it. This, he repeated, leaning forward. So you admit there's something between us. That's not what I stopped, frustrated. You know what I meant. I do. And I respect your desire to protect your daughter. He paused. But you misunderstand my interest. I'm not threatening her, Arya. I would never hurt a child. Then why ask about her? Because she's part of you, part of your life. His hand reached across the table, catching my wrist before I could pull away. His thumb found my pulse point, pressing gently. And I want to know everything about you. My heart raced beneath his touch. and I knew he could feel it. Why? Because you're mine. I thought I made that clear. I'm not a possession, I hissed, trying to jerk my hand back. His grip tightened just enough to keep me in place, not painful, but inescapable. No, he agreed softly. You're much more valuable than a possession. You're an obsession. The word hung between us, heavy and terrifying. You're crazy. My voice shook. You don't even know me. I know you work 3 jobs to keep your daughter fed. I know her father isn't in the picture, hasn't been for 2 years. His thumb stroked my racing pulse. I know you dropped out of community college when you got pregnant. I know you send money to your mother every month even though you can barely afford to eat. I know you haven't been on a date in over a year, haven't been touched by anyone except that unfortunate encounter last weekend with... Stop. Tears burned my eyes. How do you know all that? I make it my business to know everything about what belongs to me. He finally released my wrist, but the phantom heat of his touch remained. Your daughter's father, where is he? I don't know. He left when I was 6 months pregnant, said he wasn't ready to be a father. The old wound throbbed. I haven't heard from him since. Something dangerous flickered across Dante's face. His name. Why? Because I asked, and because you'll tell me eventually anyway. Save us both time. I shouldn't tell him. Shouldn't give him any more ammunition. But looking into those implacable eyes, I knew he was right. He'd find out with or without my cooperation. Jake Morrison. The name tasted bitter. But he could be anywhere. He's not. Let me worry about that. Dante's smile returned, but it wasn't comforting. Any other men I should know about? Besides the unfortunate Tyler? There's no one. There hasn't been anyone. Why was I telling him this? Why did it feel like a confession? Good. He stood suddenly, pulling out his wallet and dropping several $100 bills on the table. That's for the coffee I won't be drinking and for your time. Take your break. We're leaving. What? No, I can't just... You can. You will. He gestured to one of his guards, who immediately headed toward Marcus at the counter. Your boss is being informed that you're leaving early today. He won't object. I watched in horror as the guard spoke quietly to Marcus, who'd gone the color of old cheese. After a moment, Marcus nodded frantically, his eyes darting to me with something that looked almost like pity. Come, Arya. Dante extended his hand, and I stared at it like it was a venomous snake. Don't make me ask twice. Where are we going? Somewhere we can talk properly. Somewhere private. His eyes promised things that made my stomach clench with equal parts fear and something I didn't want to name. Don't worry. I'll have you back in time to pick up Emma from daycare. See? I pay attention to your schedule. That should have been comforting. Instead, it was terrifying. Knowing he'd researched me so thoroughly. Knew my routines, my vulnerabilities, every soft spot where he could apply pressure. But what choice did I have? His guard was already holding my purse, retrieved from the back. Marcus was nodding like a bobblehead, clearly too terrified to object to anything, and Dante was waiting, patient as a cat at a mouse hole, knowing I'd eventually have to come out. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong, and I felt the trap spring shut. The car waiting outside was exactly what I'd expected. Sleek, black, expensive enough to feed me and Emma for a year. The windows were tinted so dark I couldn't see inside, and when one of the guards opened the back door, the interior looked like a cave leading to another world. Dante's hand remained on the small of my back, guiding me forward with gentle but inexorable pressure. I climbed in, the leather seat cold against my bare legs, and he slid in beside me, close enough that his thigh pressed against mine. The door closed with a heavy thunk that sounded like finality. Where are we going? I asked again, as the car pulled smoothly into traffic. The driver was separated from us by a privacy partition, dark and opaque. My apartment, downtown. Dante settled back, his arm draping across the seat behind me, not quite touching but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. Relax, Piccola. I'm not going to hurt you. Everyone keeps saying that right before they hurt me. The words slipped out, bitter and honest. His eyes sharpened. Who hurt you? Does it matter? Yes. One word, but it carried weight. A promise or a threat. I couldn't tell which. It matters to me. I looked away, watching the city slide past through tinted windows. Buildings grew taller, cleaner, more expensive as we drove. This wasn't my world. This was where people like Dante lived. People who wore suits that cost thousands and never worried about rent or daycare or whether they'd eat this week. Jake hurt me, I finally said. Not physically, but he looked me in the eye, told me he loved me, and then disappeared the moment things got hard. That hurt worse than any punch. And Tyler? His voice had gone dangerously soft. Tyler didn't hurt me. We barely... I stopped, heat flooding my face. It wasn't anything serious, but you slept with him. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes, once, last weekend. I forced myself to meet his gaze. Is that what this is about? Some weird possessive thing because I dared to sleep with someone else before you decided I was yours? No. His hand moved from the seat to my hair, fingers threading through it with surprising gentleness. This is about the fact that you were so desperate to feel something, anything, that you let some stranger touch you, that you sent him that message, hoping he'd make you feel alive again. I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened, holding me in place. And it didn't work, did it? He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. He touched you, and you felt nothing. Empty. Maybe even more invisible than before. A sob caught in my throat because he was right. God help me, he was right. Tyler had been perfectly nice, perfectly adequate, and I'd felt absolutely nothing, just going through motions, pretending to feel something I didn't. Wishing I was home with Emma instead. How do you know that? I whispered. Because if he'd made you feel the way you needed to feel, you wouldn't have sent him that text. You wouldn't have been looking for more. His lips brushed my temple, and I shuddered. You would have been satisfied, but you weren't. You were still hungry. Stop. But I didn't mean it, and we both knew it. I can give you what you need, Arya. What you've been craving. His hand slid from my hair to my throat, not squeezing, just resting there, possessive and warm. All you have to do is stop fighting and let me. The car slowed, then stopped. We'd arrived at a building that scraped the sky, all glass and steel and wealth beyond imagining. The guard opened the door, and Dante released me, climbing out and extending his hand. I stared at it, knowing this was a choice. I could refuse, could demand he take me back to the diner, back to my safe, miserable, invisible life. But I took his hand anyway. The lobby was marble and gold, with a doorman who nodded respectfully as we passed. The elevator required a keycard, which Dante produced from his jacket. We rode up in silence, and I watched the numbers climb, 30 floors, 40, 50. The penthouse, of course. When the doors opened, they revealed an apartment that wasn't really an apartment at all. It was a palace. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, making me feel like I was floating above the world. Modern furniture in blacks and grays, artwork that probably cost more than my life. Everything clean and expensive and utterly soulless. It's not much, Dante said, and I almost laughed at the absurdity, but it serves its purpose, which is what? Intimidating poor girls? No. He moved to a bar cart near the windows, pouring amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses. Keeping me safe. These walls are reinforced. The windows are bulletproof. Every entrance is monitored. In my world, you don't survive without precautions. He handed me a glass, and I took it automatically, staring at the expensive whiskey like it might contain answers. You keep talking about your world, I said, but you never actually say what that means. You know what it means. You knew the moment you saw me yesterday. He took a sip, watching me over the rim of his glass. You felt it, the danger. You're a criminal. Saying it out loud made it real, terrifying. I'm a businessman who operates outside traditional legal frameworks. He smiled at my expression. But yes, if you want to simplify it, I'm a criminal. Does that scare you? Yes. Good, it should. He set down his glass and closed the distance between us, taking mine and setting it aside too. Fear keeps you alert, aware, and I need you aware for what I'm about to tell you. My heart hammered. What? Jake Morrison, your daughter's father. Dante's hands settled on my hips, holding me in place. He didn't just abandon you, Arya. He stole from me. The world tilted. What? 2 years ago, Jake worked as a low-level courier for one of my operations. He was supposed to deliver a package. Cash, to be specific. $500,000. His thumbs stroked my hip bones through my thin uniform. He took the money and ran. Disappeared. We've been looking for him ever since. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what he was saying. No, Jake he worked construction. He told you he worked construction. He lied. Dante's voice was gentle, almost apologetic. He lied about a lot of things, I imagine, including how he felt about you. Tears spilled down my cheeks, hot and unstoppable. Why are you telling me this? Because I found him 3 days ago. His hands tightened on my hips, and because you need to understand that the moment I connected you to him, everything changed. Terror lanced through me. Is that why you're doing this? Because of what Jake did? Are you going to... Is this revenge? Are you going to hurt Emma because her father... No. He pulled me closer, his forehead pressing against mine. Listen to me carefully, Arya. I don't punish children for their father's sins. Your daughter is innocent, and she'll remain untouched. Do you understand? I nodded frantically, relief and fear warring inside me. But Jake... His voice turned to ice. Jake will answer for what he did. And the interesting thing is, he doesn't know about you and Emma. He left before she was born, disappeared so completely he never knew he had a daughter. Then how did you connect us? Your mother. She still uses her maiden name, but I traced Jake's last known contact. A phone call to a woman named Patricia Chen 2 years ago. Your mother. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. From there, it was easy to find you. And Emma. And this whole tragic story of a woman abandoned and struggling alone. I should have been angry, should have been outraged at this invasion of privacy, but all I felt was exhausted, defeated. So what now? You found me. Connected me to Jake. What does that mean for us? It means, he said slowly, that you've been living with the consequences of his choices for 2 years. Working yourself to death, raising his child alone, suffering because he was a coward and a thief. His hands moved to cup my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. And it means I'm going to fix that. You can't fix it. What's done is done. I can make sure you never struggle again. Never worry about rent or food or daycare. Never have to work 3 jobs just to survive. His thumbs wiped away my tears. I can give you and Emma a life where you're safe, comfortable, protected. In exchange for what? Because men like him didn't give without taking something in return. In exchange for you. Simple, direct, terrifying. Be mine, Arya. Truly mine. Let me take care of you and your daughter. Let me give you everything Jake should have given you and more. That's insane. You don't even know me. It's been less than 24 hours since that text. You can't just... I can. His grip tightened slightly, and I will. Because from the moment I saw you yesterday, something in me recognized something in you. And that text? That was fate giving me permission to act on what I already knew. What did you know? That you were mine. That you've always been mine. I just had to find you. He kissed my forehead, achingly gentle. Say yes, Arya. Stop fighting this. Let me make everything better. And if I say no, his expression darkened, then I'll wait. I'm a patient man when I need to be, but make no mistake. You will say yes eventually, because I can offer you everything you've ever needed. And the alternative is going back to that life of barely surviving. Always one crisis away from disaster. He was right. And I hated him for it. Hated that he'd found the exact pressure point. The exact vulnerability that made his offer almost impossible to refuse. I need time, I whispered. I can't just... This is too much, too fast. I need to think. You have until tomorrow. Not negotiable. I'll pick you up from the diner at 7. You'll give me your answer then, he paused. And Arya, delete Tyler's number, because whether you say yes tomorrow or in a month, the end result is the same. You're mine, and I don't share. He kissed me then, not gentle like his other touches, but claiming, possessive, his mouth on mine with an intensity that stole my breath and my thoughts, and everything that wasn't the taste of him, the feel of him, the overwhelming presence of him consuming every sense. When he finally pulled back, I was dizzy, clinging to his shoulders just to stay upright. That's what it feels like, he murmured against my lips. That's what you've been missing. That's what I can give you every single day for the rest of your life. Then he stepped back, straightening his jacket, composed once more while I stood there trembling and undone. Marco will drive you home. You have 2 hours before Emma's daycare closes. Plenty of time. He moved toward his desk, dismissing me. I'll see you tomorrow, Piccola. Don't keep me waiting. The ride back to my apartment passed in a blur. Marco, the guard who'd driven us, said nothing, and I was grateful for the silence. My mind was too full, too chaotic, to make small talk with one of Dante's men. My lips still burned from his kiss. My body still hummed with the memory of his touch. And my heart, God. My heart was a traitor, whispering that maybe, just maybe, saying yes wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But it would be. It had to be. Because men like Dante Carrera didn't offer happily ever afters. They offered golden cages and beautiful prisons, and the illusion of safety right up until the moment everything shattered. I picked up Emma from daycare in a daze, her excited chatter about finger painting and snack time washing over me like white noise. She was so innocent, so pure, completely unaware that her entire future hung in the balance of a decision her mother had to make. Mama, you okay? Her small hand patted my cheek as we walked home. Her brown eyes, Jake's eyes, damn him, worried. I'm fine, baby. I forced a smile, kissing her forehead. Just tired. You're always tired, Mama. The simple observation broke something in me. She was right. I was always tired, always struggling, always barely holding everything together with duct tape and prayers. What kind of life was that for either of us? That night, after Emma fell asleep curled against my side, I stared at my phone. Tyler's contact information glowed on the screen, a symbol of my last attempt at normalcy, at feeling like a regular person who could date and flirt and make mistakes that didn't have life-altering consequences. I deleted the number, not because Dante had told me to, but because I knew, deep in my bones, that whether I said yes or no tomorrow, Tyler, and any other man, was irrelevant now. Dante had marked me, claimed me, and some primal part of me had accepted it the moment our eyes met yesterday. Sleep came in fits and starts, plagued by dreams of dark eyes and dangerous promises. Morning arrived too soon and too slowly all at once. I went through the motions, getting Emma ready, dropping her at daycare, heading to the diner for my shift. But every minute felt like walking toward an executioner's block, knowing the axe would fall at 7 p.m. whether I was ready or not. The day crawled by. Marcus watched me nervously, probably wondering if he'd ever see me again after whatever had happened yesterday. Customers came and went, their faces blurring together into meaningless noise. At 6:30, I untied my apron with shaking hands. Leaving early again? Marcus asked, but there was no heat in it, just resignation. Yeah. I didn't owe him an explanation, didn't owe anyone anything except Emma, and the decision I was about to make was for her as much as for me. I stepped outside and the black car was already there, idling at the curb like a sleek predator. Marco opened the door, and I climbed in without hesitation this time. Dante sat in the back, looking impossibly beautiful in a navy suit, his dark eyes tracking my every movement as I settled beside him. Arya. My name was a caress, a question, a demand. I need to know something first, I said, before I could lose my nerve. Jake. What are you going to do to him? His expression didn't change. Does it matter? Yes. I met his gaze steadily. Because if I say yes to this, to you, I need to know what kind of man you are. I need to know if I'm putting my daughter's life in the hands of a monster. I'm not a good man, Arya. I've never claimed to be. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I've hurt people. Killed people when necessary. I operate in a world where mercy is weakness and hesitation is death. My stomach clenched, but I didn't look away. But, he continued, I have rules. Lines I don't cross. I don't hurt innocents. I don't involve children. And I don't make promises I can't keep. He paused. Jake stole from me. That requires consequences, but his death isn't necessary. Just his compliance. He'll return what he took, work off his debt, and then he'll be free to disappear again. Unless what? Unless you want him to be part of Emma's life. If you do, I can arrange that. Supervised visits, support payments, whatever you think is best for your daughter. His eyes softened slightly. I meant what I said. I won't punish Emma for his sins. If she needs her father, I'll make sure she has him. Tears burned my eyes. She doesn't need him. He abandoned us. But maybe someday she'll want to know him. Want answers. Then someday, he'll give them to her. Dante reached out, catching a tear with his thumb. I'll make sure of it. Do you believe me? I searched his face, looking for deception, for the monster he claimed to be, but all I saw was intensity, possession, and something that looked almost like tenderness. I believe you. The words came out barely above a whisper. Then tell me, Piccola. His hand slid to my neck, cradling my jaw. What's your answer? I thought of Emma, sleeping peacefully while I worked myself to exhaustion. I thought of rent I couldn't pay, daycare bills mounting, the constant fear that one wrong move would send everything crashing down. I thought of being invisible, untouched, forgotten by everyone except the daughter who deserved so much more than a mother who was slowly breaking apart. And I thought of the way Dante looked at me, really looked at me, like I was something precious and rare, instead of just another broken girl in a cheap uniform. Yes. The word felt like jumping off a cliff. But I have conditions. His smile was sharp, triumphant. Name them. Emma comes first, always. Her safety, her happiness, her future, that's non-negotiable. Agreed. I won't be a prisoner. I need freedom, space to breathe. You can't just lock me away somewhere. You'll have freedom within reason, but understand. My world is dangerous. There will be security, precautions. For your protection, not your imprisonment. I nodded slowly, and I need to know. What exactly are you expecting from me? What does being yours mean? His eyes darkened with heat. It means you share my bed, my life. You let me take care of you, provide for you, protect you. His thumb traced my lower lip. It means when I want you, and I will want you often, you don't deny me. Heat flooded through me, fear and desire tangled together. And if I do deny you, you won't. Not arrogant, just certain. Because I'll make sure you want me just as badly as I want you. I'll make you crave my touch the way you've been craving connection all this time. I'll fill that emptiness inside you, until there's no room left for doubt or fear, or anything except what we have together. That sounds like obsession. It is. He leaned closer, his lips brushing mine. I told you. You're my obsession now, and I take care of my obsessions. He kissed me then, deep and claiming, and I kissed him back, surrendering to the inevitable, to the choice I'd already made the moment I'd sent that text, even if I hadn't known it then. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine. I'm going to move you out of that apartment tomorrow. You and Emma will stay in one of my properties, fully furnished, secure, close to a better daycare, not asking, telling. But somehow I didn't mind. You'll quit all 3 of your jobs. Focus on being Emma's mother, on letting me take care of both of you. That's too much, too fast. No. His grip tightened. That's what should have happened 2 years ago. What Jake should have given you. I'm just correcting his mistake. Dante? Say it. His voice dropped to a command. Say you're mine. I looked into those dark, endless eyes and felt myself fall. I'm yours. The smile that curved his lips was pure male satisfaction. Good girl. Now come here. He pulled me onto his lap, and I went willingly, straddling him in the back of the car, while Marco drove us through the city. His hands roamed my body, possessive, hungry, claiming every inch of me through my cheap uniform. "This is the last time you wear this," he muttered against my throat, his teeth grazing my pulse point. "Tomorrow, I'm buying you a new wardrobe. Everything you need, everything you deserve. I don't need expensive clothes. You need whatever I decide you need." He bit down gently, making me gasp. "And I've decided you need to look like what you are. Mine. My woman. Not some invisible ghost serving coffee to people who don't even see you." His hand slid up my thigh, and I trembled, overwhelmed by sensation, by the reality of what I'd just agreed to. This was happening. This was real. I'd given myself to a Mafia boss, and instead of terror, all I felt was relief, desire, and something dangerous that felt almost like hope. "Take me home," I whispered against his lips. "To your home. I know what you need." His eyes blazed. "And I'm going to give it to you. All of it. Starting tonight." Marco drove us to the penthouse, and Dante carried me from the car to the elevator to his bedroom. A massive space done in blacks and silvers, dominated by a bed that looked more like an altar to decadence. He set me down carefully, then stepped back, his eyes raking over me with predatory intensity. "Strip." One word, a command. My hands shook as I reached for the buttons of my uniform, but I didn't hesitate, didn't refuse. I let the cheap fabric fall away, revealing mismatched underwear and a body that had carried and birthed a child, that bore the marks of struggle and survival. I wasn't perfect, wasn't polished or sophisticated or anything like what a man like him should want. But the way he looked at me, like I was a feast and he was starving, made me feel beautiful, powerful, seen. "Perfect," he breathed, closing the distance between us. Absolutely perfect. His hands mapped my body, learning every curve, every imperfection, every scar and stretch mark, and where his hands went, his mouth followed, worshipping me with a devotion that felt almost religious. When he finally laid me back on that massive bed, when he stripped away his own expensive armor and covered my body with his, when he pushed inside me with a groan that sounded like prayer, I finally understood what I'd been missing. This connection. Being seen, touched, claimed by someone who wanted me with an intensity that bordered on madness. "Mine," he growled against my throat, moving inside me with deep, powerful strokes. "Say it again. Tell me you're mine." "Yours," I gasped, my nails raking down his back. "I'm yours, Dante. Only yours. Forever." He captured my mouth, swallowing my moans. "You're mine forever, Arya. You and Emma both. My family. Mine to protect, mine to care for, mine to love. Love." The word should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like a promise, a vow. I shattered beneath him, crying out his name, and he followed moments later, burying himself deep and marking me from the inside out. Afterwards, as we lay tangled together, his hand traced lazy patterns on my hip. "I meant it," he said quietly. "Everything I promised. You and Emma will want for nothing. You'll be safe, protected, provided for." He tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his gaze. "All you have to do is be mine. I already am." And I meant it. Somehow, impossibly, I meant it. 3 months later, I watched Emma play in the garden of the house Dante had bought for us. Not the penthouse, but a beautiful home in a safe neighborhood with a yard and good schools nearby. She was laughing, chasing butterflies, looking healthier and happier than I'd ever seen her. Dante's arms wrapped around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Happy?" he murmured. I leaned back into his embrace, feeling safe in a way I'd never felt before. "Yes." "Good." He kissed my temple. "Because you're stuck with me now. No escape." I turned in his arms, rising on my toes to kiss him properly. "I don't want to escape. You gave me everything, Dante. Everything I needed." "No, Piccola." His eyes were soft, filled with that obsessive devotion I'd come to crave. "You gave me everything. A family. A reason to be more than just a monster. A home." And as Emma called for us to come play, as we walked hand in hand into that sunlit garden, I realized that sometimes the best things in life came from the worst mistakes. That sometimes sending a text to the wrong number was exactly what fate had intended all along. I was his. He was mine. And finally, after so long being invisible, I was exactly where I belonged.